What's the difference between a natural menopause and a surgical or induced menopause? Natural menopause happens when periods stop on their own. It's a gradual process where there's a lot of irregularity and symptoms can come and go for years. But with a surgical or induced menopause, someone goes into menopause overnight when their ovaries are removed. That's because the ovaries are the source of estrogen production. And so many women have had a hysterectomy for fibroids or heavy bleeding or cervical cancer that spread. And they may have been advised to have their ovaries removed. Many were told, you don't need these anymore, which is not necessarily true. So if you had a surgical menopause, even if you're in your 30s or 40s when that happened, if you were given estrogen or the birth control pill to help give your body back that estrogen that it was used to, that's great, and you can stay on it. However, if you had a surgical menopause and no one gave you estrogen or talked to you about the benefits of using estrogen, if you're under the age of 52, it's not too late to start estrogen. That's right. If you're under the natural age of menopause, you may want to start using either the birth control pill, which has estrogen and progesterone in it, or using estrogen at a little bit higher doses than what we give to women who are over 52. And that's because younger women benefit from more estrogen. Their body typically needs it. Why should you do it? Well, there's two reasons. One is your day-to-day quality of life. If you had a surgical menopause, chances are you have a lot of hot flashes, night sweats, sleep disruption, vaginal dryness. You may even be leaking urine. You may have found that your sexuality has changed. You're not really interested in sex, or when you do have sex, those orgasms are really elusive, really difficult to have. So you may not be enjoying your life as much as you were. But estrogen also does a lot of other things. In terms of what you can't see in your body, estrogen is cardioprotective. It helps your blood vessels. It helps prevent your blood vessels from getting thicker with atherosclerosis and plaque. It helps prevent that narrowing of the blood vessels that can lead to a heart attack or a stroke. Even women who have high blood pressure, if they're well controlled on medication, can still use estrogen. So estrogen also helps preserve our bone mass. It helps us keep our bones strong, thick, and healthy. But estrogen does a few other things. Estrogen is the precursor or the building block hormone for collagen. So collagen, not just in your face for the improvement of wrinkles, but also in your muscles and joints. So when there's less estrogen, there can be more muscle and joint aches. And you might be thinking, well, it's probably arthritis or I worked out too much, but it may be that there's not enough estrogen that helps produce collagen. The other thing is that estrogen keeps everything moist. It keeps your eyes moist. It keeps your vagina moist. And so without estrogen, many women find they have very dry vaginas. They don't lubricate as naturally, and they can feel a lot more irritated. Without estrogen in the vagina, typically, there's not enough lactobacilli. That's the normal, healthy bacteria that live in the vagina that keep the pH very low or very acidic. What happens without estrogen? Well, you may notice an odor. It can sometimes smell fishy, especially after sex. But you also may notice that without estrogen, you don't have the same elasticity. The vagina doesn't widen. It doesn't stretch as much as it used to, and things can get very irritated. You also may find that you have more bladder infections. Why is that? Without estrogen, without that normal, healthy lactobacilli and that acidic pH, there can be an overgrowth of harmful bacteria that can migrate from the vagina to the urethra and up into the bladder, causing a bladder infection. Also, without estrogen to help with the collagen and the muscles and in the joints, we may not have as much muscle strength in our pelvic floor, and we may find that we're leaking more. So for women who've had a surgical menopause, they may be dealing with so many hidden issues that they feel hesitant to talk about. They may feel like they're the only one, or that they didn't get the memo, or no one bothered to ask them about some of these symptoms. But it's not too late. So if you're watching this and this applies to you, do talk to a women's healthcare provider. You can also send this to a friend who may have experienced a surgical menopause and was not given the information about the benefits of using estrogen. Of course, everyone's individual and everyone's situation is different. So you'll want to talk to your own healthcare provider about what's best for you. But I don't want you to miss out on the benefits of estrogen because so often we've been told about all of the risks, but those risks are pretty small and they don't apply to every type of estrogen or every type of progesterone. And many women find that their short-term, day-to-day quality of life is improved by estrogen, and the risks, while they may be there, they have been overblown. And women are like thinking, well, I don't want to have something bad happen, but the risks of that happening are typically very, very remote. So you may want to think about, what is the benefit for my long-term health? Is there a risk? If there is, you know what? We say that the risk of something happening with estrogen, like the risk of breast cancer, is probably equivalent to the risk every woman has if she doesn't exercise 30 minutes a day. When we think about those risks, we think, it's not a 50% risk. It doesn't mean that every other person will have an issue with it. Those risks are very remote and they don't apply to every woman. So do get the information you need to make the best decision for your own personal health and safety. If you have a comment, please leave it below. And if you like this video or you sent it on to someone, please click on like and subscribe. I hope this has been helpful for those of us women who've had an early menopause that was induced from surgery and who were not given the benefit of information about using estrogen long-term to protect their long-term health.